The apartment was quiet, except for the sound of rain pattering against the window. I sat on my bed, laptop open, staring at the blinking cursor on a blank document. My creative writing assignment was due in 2 days, and I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. The prompt was simple. Write about a moment that changed everything. But every idea I came up with felt too revealing, too personal, too close to the truth I'd been hiding for the past 6 months. I heard the front door open and close. Tyler was home. My roommate had a way of announcing his presence without saying a word. There was always the thud of his gym bag hitting the floor, the rustle of his jacket being tossed onto the couch, and then his footsteps heading toward the kitchen. I listened to the familiar rhythm, trying to focus on my assignment, but my mind kept wandering to him. Tyler Chen had been my roommate since September, assigned to me by the university's housing system. When I first met him, I thought we'd have nothing in common. He was a business major, captain of the intramural soccer team, always surrounded by friends. I was an English major, introverted, more comfortable with books than people. But somehow, we worked. He introduced me to his teammates. I helped him with his essays. We fell into an easy friendship that made our cramped 2-bedroom apartment feel like home. The only problem was that I'd developed feelings for him, real, inconvenient, terrifying feelings. And I was absolutely certain he had no idea.
Tyler
Was straight, talked about girls he found attractive, went on dates occasionally, and never gave any indication that he saw me as anything other than his slightly nerdy ex-quainty roommate who could explain the difference between a metaphor and a simile. I'd accepted this reality. I dated a few guys during my freshman year, nothing serious, but I kept that part of my life separate from my friendship with Tyler, not because I thought he'd react badly. Tyler had always seemed like a decent, open-minded person. But there was something about being vulnerable, about potentially changing the dynamic we had that terrified me. So I stayed quiet. Marcus. Tyler's voice came from the kitchen. You want pizza? I'm ordering from Antonio's. Called back, sure. Get me the margarita, extra basil. You know it. This was our routine. Tyler ordered food. I picked the movies, and we'd spend our Friday nights on the couch, decompressing from the week. It was comfortable, safe, uncomplicated, except it wasn't, at least not for me. Every casual touch when he passed me the remote, every time he laughed at one of my jokes, every moment he chose to stay home with me instead of going out with his friends, I read too much into it. I knew I was torturing myself, but I couldn't seem to stop. An hour later, we were settled on the couch, pizza box open between us, watching some action movie Tyler had picked. I wasn't really paying attention to the explosions on screen. I was too aware of Tyler's presence, the way his shoulder was just inches from mine, the smell of his cologne mixed with the pizza. You okay? Tyler asked suddenly, and I realized I'd been staring at the TV without actually seeing it. Thinking about my writing assignment.
Oh.
The one about a life-changing moment. How did you know that? You mentioned it last week. Said you were stressed about it. He grabbed another slice of pizza. Why is it stressing you out? You're literally the best writer I know. I shrugged. The prompt is too open-ended. I don't know what to write about. Write about something real. That's what you always tell me when I'm stuck on an essay, right? Write what you know. If only he knew how ironic that advice was. Maybe, I said non-committally. Tyler shifted on the couch, turning to face me more directly. Can I ask you something? My heart rate immediately picked up. Sure, we've been roommates for like 8 months now, and we're friends, right? Of course, so why do I feel like there's this whole part of your life you never talk about? I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? I mean, I tell you about everything. My classes, my team drama, the girls I go out with, but you never really talk about your life outside of here. Like, do you date? Are you seeing anyone? This was it? The moment I'd been dreading and somehow knew was inevitable. I could deflect. I could change the subject. But sitting there, looking at Tyler's genuinely curious expression, I found I was tired of hiding. I'm gay, I said quietly. The words hung in the air between us. Tyler's expression didn't change, but he went very still. Okay, he said finally. I dated a few guys last year, I continued, the words coming faster now that I'd started. Nothing serious. Haven't really been seeing anyone this semester. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure how you'd react. And I didn't want to make things weird between us. And I guess I was scared. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Marcus, I don't care that you're gay. I mean, I care because it's part of who you are. But it doesn't change anything between us. You're still my roommate, still my friend. The relief that washed over me was so intense I felt lightheaded. Really? But I am kind of hurt that you didn't think you could tell me. It's not that I didn't trust you, I said quickly. I just thought that this is still pretty new for me. I only came out to my parents last year, and that didn't go great. I'm still figuring out how to navigate all of this. Tyler's expression softened. I'm sorry about your parents. That must have been really hard. It was. They're working on accepting it, but it's complicated. I picked at the label on my water bottle. It's part of why I wanted college. To be different, a fresh start, where I could just be myself without all the baggage. And instead, you got a roommate you felt like you had to hide from? I didn't have to hide. I chose to. There's a difference. Tyler nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you told me. And I'm sorry if I ever said or did anything that made you feel like you couldn't. You didn't. This was all me and my own anxiety. We fell into silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Tyler turned his attention back to the movie, and I tried to do the same, but my mind was racing. I'd done it. I'd told him, and he'd taken it exactly as I'd hoped he would. Why did I still feel this knot of tension in my chest? Because telling him I was gay and telling him I had feelings for him were two entirely different things. And the latter was something I could never do. The weekend passed in a blur of normalcy that felt surreal. Tyler didn't treat me any differently, which was both a relief and somehow disappointing in a way I couldn't quite articulate. We still ordered food, still watched movies, still fell into our comfortable routines. But there was a new openness between us. On Sunday night, as I was working on my assignment again, Tyler knocked on my door. Hey, can we talk? My heart jumped. Sure. Come in. Tyler sat on the edge of my bed, looking uncharacteristically nervous. I've been thinking about our conversation on Friday, okay? And I realized I might have made it seem like it was no big deal, which it's not, but also it is, and I think I didn't respond the right way. I closed my laptop. Tyler, you responded fine. You were supportive. That's all I needed. I was supportive, but I also kind of just moved on really fast. And I've been thinking that maybe you needed to talk about it more, or maybe you have questions, or maybe I should have questions, and I just ... He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm not saying this right. What are you trying to say? I guess I'm trying to say that I want you to know you can talk to me about anything, about being gay, about dating, about whatever. You don't have to keep parts of your life separate anymore. Not with me. The sincerity in his voice made my chest ache. Thank you, that means a lot. And also, Tyler continued, I'm sorry if I ever talked about girls or dating in a way that made you uncomfortable. I never thought about how that might feel for you. Tyler, you don't have to apologize for being straight and talking about your life. I know, but I could have been more aware. It's more inclusive in how I talked about things. I smiled despite myself. You're really overthinking this. Probably, he admitted with a slight laugh. But I care about you, Marcus. You're one of my best friends. I want to get this right. Those words, one of my best friends, should have made me happy. And they did. But they also reminded me of the line I could never cross. You're already getting it right, I assured him. Tyler seemed to relax a bit. Okay, good. But seriously, if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here. I know. And same goes for you. He grinned. Oh, I never shut up. You know everything about my life. If only that were true. If only he knew what I was thinking. Every time he smiled at me like that, the next few weeks brought an unexpected shift in our dynamic. True to his word, Tyler started being more open about including me in all aspects of his life. He invited me to his soccer games more often, introduced me to his teammates as his best friend instead of just his roommate, started asking my opinion on guys the same way he asked about girls. So there's this guy in my econ class. He said one evening while we were studying, I think he might be into you. I looked up from my textbook. What? Josh. Tall, blonde. Always wears those vintage band shirts. He asked about you the other day. He knows who I am. I talk about you all the time. Anyway, he asked if you were single. My heart did a complicated flip. And what did you say? I said you were, and Doth should talk to you himself instead of being weird and asking me. Tyler looked pleased with himself. I gave him your Instagram. You did what? Relax. I checked his profile first. He seems cool. Decent taste in music. Volunteers at the animal shelter. Not a red flag in sight. I didn't know whether to be touched or mortified. Tyler, you can't just give out my social media to random guys. He's not random. He's in my class, and you need to put yourself out there more. Since when are you my dating coach? Since you told me I could be a part of this aspect of your life, so I'm being a part of it. You're welcome. He said it with such earnest enthusiasm that I couldn't even be annoyed. That night, Josh did message me. Tyler had been right about him seeming cool. We talked for a few days, and he asked me to get coffee. Said yes, partly because I was genuinely interested, and partly because I thought maybe dating someone else would help me get over my feelings for Tyler. The date with Josh was nice. He was funny, easy to talk to, shared my taste in books and music. We went on a second date, then a third. He was everything I should have wanted, but every time he texted me, every time we made plans, I found myself comparing him to Tyler. It wasn't fair to Josh, and I knew it. Tyler was thrilled about my budding relationship, asked about Josh constantly, gave me advice on date ideas, and even offered to make himself scarce when Josh came over to the apartment. His enthusiasm should have made me happy. Instead, it drove home the reality that Tyler saw me as his friend. Nothing more, and was actively trying to set me up with someone else. One night, about a month after Josh and I started dating, Tyler came home from a party earlier than expected. I was on the couch watching TV, surprised to see him. You're home early, I said. Wasn't really feeling it, Tyler replied, his words slightly slurred. He'd been drinking. Where's Josh? He had a family thing this weekend. So you're just here alone on a Saturday night? Should have come to the party. Wasn't really feeling it either, I echoed his words. Tyler flopped onto the couch next to me, closer than he usually sat. Can I tell you something? Always. I think Rebecca likes me, from my marketing class. The girl with the red hair? Yeah, she was all over me tonight. And she's cool, pretty. We have stuff in common. But I could hear the hesitation in his voice, but I don't know. Something felt off, like I should be more excited about it than I am. I knew exactly what he meant, even if our situations were completely different. Maybe you're just not that into her. Maybe, or maybe I'm just bad at this whole dating thing. He leaned his head back against the couch. How do you know when you actually like someone? Like really like them? The question felt loaded, dangerous. I guess you just know. You can't stop thinking about them. When being around them makes everything better, and the thought of them being with someone else makes your chest hurt. It was quiet for a moment. Is that how you feel about Josh? No. That's how I feel about you. But I said, I like Josh. He's great. That's not what I asked. Tyler, you're drunk. We should get you some water and get you to bed. I'm not that drunk and you're avoiding the question. He turned to look at me, his eyes more focused than I expected. Do you love him? It's only been a month. That's too soon for love. But you could, eventually. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe it was true. But sitting there with Tyler looking at me like my answer actually mattered to him, I couldn't lie. I don't know, I admitted. Why not? Because he's not... I stopped myself, but Tyler was looking at me with such intensity that the words tumbled out anyway. Because he's not you. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Tyler's expression change, shift through confusion, surprise, and something else I couldn't quite read. Marcus, he said slowly. What are you saying? I should have backtracked, laughed it off, blamed my own exhaustion or the late hour. But I was so tired of hiding. I'm saying that I have feelings for you. That I've had feelings for you for months. I know you're straight, and I know this is probably the worst thing I could have told you. You're asked, and I'm tired of lying. Tyler didn't say anything. He just stared at me, and I watched our friendship crumble in real time. "I should go," I said, standing up. "I'm sorry. Just forget I said anything. Wait." Tyler grabbed my wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop. "Me. Don't go." "Tyler, I can't do this right now. I can't sit here and have the conversation where you let me down easy and tell me. You're flattered, but you're not interested. I just can't. That's not what I was going to say." "Then what were you going to say?" Tyler stood up, still holding my wrist, close enough that I could smell the alcohol on his breath mixed with his cologne. "I was going to say that I've been confused for weeks, that ever since you told me you were gay, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you differently. That when you started dating Josh, I felt something I'd never felt before, and I didn't know what it meant." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I got jealous, Marcus. When you talked about Josh, when you went on dates with him, I was jealous. And I didn't understand why, because I'm supposed to be straight, right? I've only ever dated girls. I've only ever been attracted to girls. But then there's you, Tyler. You're drunk. You don't know what you're saying. I'm not that drunk. I know exactly what I'm saying. I've been thinking about this for weeks." He let go of my wrist but didn't step back. "I think I might be bisexual. Or maybe I'm not, and I'm just confused. But what I know for sure is that I have feelings for you too, and I have no idea what to do about it." I felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. "You have feelings for me?" "No." "And it terrifies me because I've never felt this way about a guy before. I don't know what it means or what I'm supposed to do, and I'm probably screwing up our friendship by even telling you this." "You're not screwing anything up, aren't I? Because now everything's different. You know how I feel, I know how you feel, and we can't just go back to being roommates who watch movies and order pizza." He was right. Everything had changed. The question was whether that change would destroy us or become something else entirely. "What about Josh?" I asked. "What about Rebecca?" Tyler countered. "I don't have feelings for Rebecca, but you're dating Josh?" "I'm dating Josh because I was trying to get over you." The confession hung between us. Tyler reached up slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, and brushed his fingers against my cheek. "I've never done this before," he said quietly. "Never kissed a guy. I don't know what I'm doing. We don't have to do anything. We can just talk, figure this out." "I don't want to just talk." And then he was kissing me, tentative and uncertain but unmistakably intentional. I kissed him back, my hands finding their way to his shoulders, steadying myself against the rush of emotions. When we broke apart, Tyler rested his forehead against mine. "Was that okay?" "It's more than okay," I whispered. "I should probably tell." "Josh," I said after a moment, "tomorrow, when you're sober and we've both had time to think, we should talk about what this means. What if I wake up tomorrow and feel differently?" The vulnerability in Tyler's voice broke my heart. "Then we'll deal with it. But Tyler, I need you to be sure. I can't do this if you're just confused or experimenting or working through something. My feelings are real, and I need yours to be too." Tyler pulled back slightly, looking me in the eyes. "They are real. I'm scared and confused about a lot of things, but I'm not confused about how I feel about you." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But I'd also learned to protect my heart. "Sleep on it," I said. "We'll talk in the morning when you're sober, and if you still feel the same way, then we'll figure out what happens." "Next." Tyler nodded reluctantly. "Okay. But Marcus? I'm not going to change my mind." I helped him to his room, made sure he had water on his nightstand, and then went to my own room. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the kiss over and over. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I woke up to find Tyler already in the kitchen making coffee. He looked up when I walked in, and I braced myself for the awkwardness. The backtracking. The I was drunk and didn't mean it conversation. Instead, he said, "I meant everything I said last night, in case you were wondering." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Yeah, I'm still scared, and I still don't have everything figured out, but I know how I feel about you." I walked over to where he stood by the coffee maker. In the morning light, sober and certain, he looked at me the same way he had the night before. "I need to talk to Josh," I said. "I know, that's fair. And you need to figure out what this means for you. Coming to terms with your sexuality? That's a big deal. It's not something you rush. Tyler nodded. I know, and I'm not trying to rush it. But I also don't want to lose you while I'm figuring it out. You're not going to lose me. But Tyler, we need to take this slow. We need to be honest with each other and ourselves. I can do that. He reached for my hand, lacing his fingers. Through mine, I want to do this right. I called Josh that afternoon. Took it better than I expected, though I could hear the disappointment in his voice. He was a good guy, and he deserved someone who could love him fully. I hoped he'd find that person. The next few weeks were a delicate balance of exploration and caution. Tyler and I didn't rush into anything. We talked a lot about what we were feeling, what we wanted, what scared us. Tyler started researching bisexuality, reading articles, watching videos, trying to understand this part of himself he'd never acknowledged before. I think I've always been attracted to guys, he told me one night. I just never let myself think about it. Like I'd notice a guy was attractive, but tell myself I was just acknowledging objective facts, not actually feeling attracted. Does that make sense? Complete sense. A lot of people experience it that way. I wish I'd figured this out earlier, before I spent so much time convincing myself I was one thing when I was actually something else. You figured it out when you were ready to. It's all that matters. We went on our first official date 3 weeks after that night on the couch. Tyler insisted on planning it, and he took me to a small Italian restaurant off campus, then to a late-night bookstore where we browsed the shelves and he bought me a poetry collection I'd been eyeing. This is nice, I said, as we walked back to the apartment, our hands linked. Being able to do this, not hiding. I like it too, though I'm still getting used to the staring. People stare? A little. Some of my teammates have been weird about it. I stopped walking. Weird how? Ouch. Are they giving you a hard time? Nothing I can't handle? A few awkward questions, some jokes that aren't really funny, but most of them have been cool. He squeezed my hand. And the ones who aren't can deal with it or leave. You're worth it. Those words, simple as they were, meant everything. Tyler came out officially a few weeks later, posting on social media about being bisexual and in a relationship. The response was mixed, as these things always are, but overwhelmingly positive. His parents called, concerned and confused, but ultimately supportive. His teammates adjusted. Life went on, different but better. We graduated that spring. Tyler got a job offer in the city, and I got into a graduate program at a university nearby. We got our own apartment, bigger than the dorm room we'd shared, with space for both of us and all our accumulated stuff. Sometimes Tyler still got those moments of doubt, usually late at night, when he'd ask if I was sure about us, if I was really okay with him still figuring things out. And I'd remind him that everyone is always figuring things out, that sexuality is fluid, that love doesn't require us to have all the answers.
I never thought my straight roommate would end up
being the love of my life, I told him one night as we lay in bed, his head on my chest. Tyler laughed. Turns out I was never as straight as either of us thought. Best secret reveal ever. Agreed. Tilted his head up to kiss me. Thanks for being patient with me. For giving me space to figure this out. Thanks for being brave. Enough to explore it? Not everyone would have. I almost didn't. I was so scared of what it meant, of how people would react, of changing everything I thought I knew about myself. He traced patterns on my arm. But then I realized being with you was worth more than staying comfortable in a lie. That writing. Assignment I'd struggled with. The one about a moment that changed everything. I eventually wrote about the night Tyler learned my secret. I wrote about fear and vulnerability, about the risk of honesty and the reward of being truly known. I got an A, but more importantly, I got Tyler. And years later, he proposed on the anniversary of that first conversation. He told me he'd kept that essay, found it in my files one day and read it, even though I'd never shown it to him. You wrote that you didn't know if telling me was a mistake or a miracle, he said, ring box in hand. So which was it? I looked at him. This person who'd started as a stranger became my best friend and somehow turned into my everything. Definitely a miracle. He slipped the ring on my finger. Good. because I plan on spending the rest of my life proving you right. And he did. We built a life together, full of the ordinary and the extraordinary. We had movie nights and arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes. We supported each other through job changes and family drama. We celebrated victories and weathered losses. Looking back, I can trace everything to that moment on the couch when I decided to be honest. When I chose vulnerability over safety, I almost didn't tell him. I almost kept hiding, kept pretending, kept protecting myself from the possibility of rejection. But I didn't. And that choice, that terrifying leap into honesty, changed everything. Not just for me, but for both of us. Tyler discovered a part of himself he'd been suppressing. I learned that sometimes the scariest risks bring the greatest rewards. Together, we proved that love doesn't always follow the script we expect, and that's okay. Better than okay. It's beautiful. My straight roommate learned my secret and everything. Changed, but not in the way I feared. It changed in the way I'd barely let myself hope for. And that has made all the difference.